Hello and welcome to this tutorial on functions in writing. What we are going to do is look at these different functions and the different words and phrases used for each of these. Before we do that, we first need to determine what a function is. Language, whether it's spoken or written, is always used for a particular purpose. For instance, to give advice, to make recommendations, to explain something, to show results or consequences, etc. These are all examples of functions, and there are special words and phrases that people use to express these functions. They work as signals to the reader. The following example tells the reader that a recommendation is going to follow. We would recommend that you cancel all your appointments next Monday. When you write emails or reports, you may need to give examples, use polite phrases, state conclusions, summarize, make reference, or explain something. And the list goes on. An opening paragraph of an email may read, "Dear Mr. Peterson, with reference to your email of the 21st of February regarding the possible purchase of a number of tablet computers for your sales division, we are glad to inform you about." In this example, with reference to your email of is used to make reference. We are glad to is used as a polite phrase. At the beginning of an email or a report, the writer often refers to an earlier email or a report, or a previous meeting or a telephone conversation, or a request from a reader. So when referring to an email or a conversation, you can use phrases like, "Thank you for your letter of the 21st of February," or "Thank you for your letter reference number FD3643. You can also say, "With reference to your letter of the 2nd of March," or "With reference to our recent telephone conversation," or "With reference to our meeting on the 22nd of October. Expressions like "I" or "we" refer to or "further to" can also be used to refer to emails and conversations. When referring to a request, writers often use "As requested, I am enclosing a copy of the contract." When referring to a published contract, writers often use "I" or "we" refer you to clause 25 of the lease contract, which states that polite phrases are often used at the beginning or end of business emails. They can be used when attaching something to an email, or to refer to the reader's future reply, or a meeting with the reader. These phrases you can use when attaching something to an email. "We are pleased to send you a copy of our brochure," or "We are pleased to submit our invoice in connection with recent consultancy services," or "We have pleasure in sending you a copy of our brochure," or "We have pleasure in submitting our invoice in connection with recent consultancy services." Another option could be, "Please find enclosed a copy of our brochure," or "Please find enclosed our invoice in connection with recent consultancy services." When a writer refers to a future reply or to a meeting, he often uses "I" or "we look forward to meeting you on March 1st," or "I" or "we look forward to hearing from you," or "I" or "we look forward to your reply." Sometimes a writer needs to tell the reader that the facts about to be mentioned are believed to be correct, or that they are understood to be correct from what the writer has been told. Sometimes he also needs to explain the assumptions on which he has based an opinion, a forecast, or a recommendation. The following phrases can be used to express understanding. I or we understand that you are a supplier of office materials. Or, it is our understanding that you have decided not to accept our proposed terms. When stating assumptions, the following phrases can be used. The estimated cost of interest on the loan will be $100,000 over 2 years, assuming an interest rate of 8%. Or, on the assumption that the interest levels remain the same, we expect the financing of the project to go ahead. Or, it is assumed that, or we assume that Mr. Anderson will withdraw from the research project. A writer may wish to point out the general rules or conditions that apply in a particular situation. Some common phrases to do that are, as a general rule, or as a rule, the researchers we employ get a 1-year contract first. Or, in general, employees work a minimum of 36 hours a week. Or, on the whole, we are very satisfied with the results. When a writer has made a point or used a word that may be difficult for the reader to understand, he may explain or define the meaning in other words. Each highly paid employee, in other words, each employee earning more than $100,000 a year, will be invited to join the incentive scheme. Or, each highly paid employee, that is, each employee earning more than $100,000 a year, will be invited to join the incentive scheme. Another phrase could be, all residents except temporary residents will be subject to taxation. This means that all residents who stay in the country for longer than 6 months will be taxed. In many emails and reports, a writer gives an opinion. This opinion may be strongly held, but the writer does not suggest any action. Also, a writer may make a suggestion. He expresses something that the reader may like to consider, without making it sound like a strong piece of advice. Thirdly, a writer may want to give advice or make recommendations based on the basis of knowledge or expertise. In my or our view, or in my opinion or our opinion, or I am or we are of the opinion that the increase in salaries last year was too high and more than the company can afford to pay. I or we suggest that, or it is suggested that you arrange a meeting with the head of research and development. I would advise you to, or it is advisable to, fly to San Francisco via Philadelphia. Or you might like to consider flying to San Francisco via Philadelphia. Or you should visit the CERN research facility when you're in Switzerland. You could also write, it is in your interest to visit the CERN research facility when you're in Switzerland. I or we recommend that, or it is recommended that the new office be located in Osaka. It is essential that, or it is of the utmost importance that, you improve the safety procedures immediately. It is often necessary for the reader to understand the degree of importance given to advice and recommendations by the writer. Sometimes the writer gives advice that the reader can choose to act on or ignore, or sometimes it may be very important or legally necessary for the reader to do something. So these are the expressions that can be used for expressing advice and recommendations, ranging from strong to tentative. Sometimes the writer has to inform the reader that it is a necessity or a legal obligation to do something. It is obligatory or it is compulsory to register the new company within 30 days. The Ministry of Commerce is obliged or is required to respond within 3 months to your request. A patent form must or has to be filed as soon as possible. You must or are required to submit a monthly report to our head office. Or it is essential that you notify the authorities in case of an emergency. This is the end of part 1 of the tutorial.